Good afternoon and welcome to Leadership Impact. My name is Matthew Devine, and today I'd like to talk to you about your LinkedIn profile. In particular, I want to talk about the impact your profile is having and the 4 things you can do to make a nice refresh. Now, for full confession, this is my first LinkedIn Live audio session, and I welcome your comments and reactions, and I promise, if you have any questions, put them in the comments, and I will get to them at the end of the session. And also, if this is your first live audio session, then give me a thumbs up. I'd love to hear from you. But before we get to the topic itself, why am I qualified to talk to you about your LinkedIn profile? First of all, I've been using LinkedIn professionally for years. In my former role as a recruiting manager at Canada's largest utility, Hydro One, I created the company's first corporate account using LinkedIn and developed our online recruitment strategy using the platform. And it's safe to say that during that time, I have seen hundreds and hundreds of profiles. Now, more recently, in the past year, I've been using LinkedIn pretty much every single day to create content, make connections with people, and grow my coaching and training practice. And during this time, I have created weekly newsletters that have been going on for months. I have published over 100 videos, I'm about to say 1,000 videos, but not there yet, but over 100 videos on the channel. And over the course of the year, I've grown my engagement by over 2,000%. So needless to say, I'm very familiar with LinkedIn. And today I'm going to share with you that experience and talk to you about your LinkedIn profile. Now, it's important to understand LinkedIn is not like any other social media platform. Most other platforms are geared around measuring engagement and promoting posts that have the most engagement, but LinkedIn's philosophy is different. LinkedIn is focused on the connections between people and the networks that result from those connections. And it means that it's operating more like a fancy networking event than a popularity contest. Now, it's not to say that posts can't go viral on LinkedIn. Of course they do, and there's a whole reason why they do and how that works. And I'll get to that in a different session. But today I want to focus specifically on why it's important that LinkedIn is different. It's important because when you create your profile, you are showing up essentially at a networking event. So I want you to imagine for a moment. Imagine walking into an in-person networking event. You walk into the room, it's a large room, there's a bunch of people around, they've got their drinks, they're connected together in small groups, they're talking, making connections, it's great. And when you're invited to these kinds of in-person events, what do you normally do? Well, for me, I make sure I got a nice shirt on. I make sure my shoes are okay. I put a comb through my hair. Basically, you want to make a good impression. And LinkedIn is basically the same. And this is where people start to make mistakes when it comes to their profile. If you're on any other social media platform, you could create a shell profile, shell account, and it's no big deal. You could use a fake name, no problem. Profile picture, no problem. It's not the same with LinkedIn. So whether or not you're active on LinkedIn, and I'm not here to tell you how often you should be on LinkedIn, that's up to you. But your profile is still visible during this time. This means that when colleagues, look for you on the platform, they will see your profile. And when recruiters search for you or they're looking around, they will also see your profile. And if your profile is incomplete, or if the information is outdated, or if you're highlighting the wrong things, whether or not you're active or not, your profile is not having the impression that you want it to have. It's possible that you're making a bad impression, in fact, and undermining the impact that you want to make. So what does an incomplete, outdated, poorly structured profile say about you? Well, and I'd like to think that most people know there's a real person behind the profile. We understand that, we get that. But I want you to go back and think about that in-person networking event. And if you're at this event and you see someone come to the event and they're wearing sweatpants and they've got a stain down the front of their shirt and their hair looks like they've just kind of rolled out of bed and it's a bit wild, what might you think? On a surface level, I think it's possible you might think that they were not taking the event too seriously or that they care to make a good impression. Now, I want you to think about that same encounter, but from a recruiter's perspective. What would a recruiter say about that person's attention to detail? What do you think that recruiter would think about that person's career aspirations? And what would they think of that person's ability to represent the company? And if they're imagining a client, could they imagine that person representing themselves? The goal today is to think about your profile and focus on the right things that will allow your profile to make a good impression. To do that, I am going to talk about 4 aspects of your profile. First, we're going to look at the banner image, and I'll say a bit about your profile image. Second, we're going to talk about your headline or the job description, or the job title rather. Third, I'm going to talk about the about section on your profile. And finally, we'll talk about the experience section. And questions I will get to at the end. As I said right at the beginning, this is my first time running an audio session, so bear with me if it takes me a moment to bring up those questions. But I'm going to get through my content first. So the first item you want to look at when giving your profile a bit of a refresh, or making sure you've got the right things, is the banner image. This is that blank space that goes along the top of your profile. If you don't have one, you'll need to get one. Because when somebody looks at your profile, before they read a single word, they are absorbing the visual elements of your banner. Like an advertisement, the colors, the images, the layout of the elements, all communicate an impression about you. And there are whole books. You could read whole books on visual marketing techniques. Don't worry about that. You can if you want to, but don't worry about that here. I'm going to give you some easy shortcuts to ensure you have a great looking banner. Now, you don't need to overthink this. You can use an existing template. Simply type into Google LinkedIn banner templates, and you'll be presented with a variety of options. Now, personally, I use a free online program called Canva. It's a graphics editing program. But Canva has the benefit in that they already have pre-made LinkedIn banner templates ready to use. You just simply need to download one that you like. Different colors, different kinds of layouts, they're great. So you can easily find a professional looking banner template, and it'll take you like 5 minutes and you're good to go. Now, if you are a little bit more savvy and you feel comfortable using programs like Canva to design your own, go to town. You can create your own banner image, great. My recommendation is keep it simple, don't put any words on it, limit the number of elements you have on it. Uncluttered is better than filling it with a whole bunch of junk. Now, another way to think about your image, or your banner, is to look at the image that you put on it. You could think of this as a way of expressing something about the industry that you work in or the particular profession that you do, and use that to inspire the design and the images that you put into your banner image. So a colleague of mine, she works in the utility business, and as her banner image, she has this gorgeous black and white picture of a transformer station. So it has all the electrical wires, the transformers and switching gear and so forth. Very engineering look, perfect for her profession, and anyone who looks at that instantly knows, here's an electrical engineer. Great. So I invite you, think about the industry you're in, and what are some images that come to mind for your field? Like if you're in, say, mining, for instance, maybe it's a picture of a mine, or maybe it's a landscape that you want to include. If you are, hey, I've got colleagues who are in finance who default to using these really cool architectural shots of corporate head offices as their banner image. So that kind of thing. Think about things that are typical of your industry or your profession, that when somebody is looking at your profile, they instantly recognize, oh, here's an engineer, or here's a finance person, or here's somebody who works in healthcare. Great. Clearly communicate something about you. A couple of things to avoid. One is avoid your personal images. No one cares about your puppies. No one cares about your weekend hobbies or your beach vacation. These should not be appearing on your banner image. This is still a professional networking event. Focus on the things that are related to your industry or profession. That plays much better. Also, the banner image is a very narrow field. So you want to be thinking, if you're looking at a picture, you want to be thinking about that horizontal dimension, because that's going to be much more applicable than a vertical dimension on an image. So keep thinking, this is a very narrow space that you're dealing with. So think about what elements are going to appear in that image. And if you don't like it, you can always change it. There's no hesitations there. Okay. The second thing you want to think about on your LinkedIn profile that you want to make sure that it's saying what you want it to say is the headline. Now, the headline, some people call it the job title, but the headline is the set of text that's immediately below your name on the LinkedIn profile. Typically, LinkedIn defaults to the job title of your most recent or your current job as the headline. It will automatically do that for you. Most people have that set up. This piece of text is probably the most viewed bit of text, aside from your name, because it shows up everywhere on LinkedIn. If you make a comment, if you post a piece of information on LinkedIn, that piece of text will show up at the top of every single post you make. So it's very visible and something that can be seen. Now, if you have your job title there, great. Most people do. Most of the time, that's fine. The thing that's a challenge is that some job titles may not be overly descriptive. And you want to think about, what would an outside audience think about that job title? Does it make sense to an outside audience? Like, it may make sense to you. You may understand what it means. And the people inside your current organization may understand what it means and understand where it fits into the organizational structure and so forth. But take a moment to consider, what does that job title mean to an outside audience? Somebody who doesn't know you. For instance, well, maybe not know you, but like if you were to tell your mother your job title, would your mother understand that? Maybe she would, but I use that as an example. Pick a family member who may not know anything about your industry. Would they get that job title? Or for that matter, like imagine going down to a coffee shop and you talk to the barista. Would your barista understand if you told them what job you did? It may be fine. Again, it may be fine if it's a recognizable job title in your industry, but there's an opportunity here to do more. In your headline, you have like 200 characters you can play with to expand here. And if you have an unusual job title, it's okay to put something different in that place. Your job title will still appear in the experience section below on your LinkedIn profile. So that's still fine. That doesn't change. But in the headline, you have the opportunity to communicate something that the audience will understand. Now, this could be translating it into a recognizable title. So for instance, if you have a senior specialist of engineering something or other, maybe an external title might be manager of engineering or director. It's okay to translate that. Alternatively, you could use this as an opportunity to communicate a statement. For instance, you could describe the kind of work you do or the kind of people you serve. For example, engineering director saving the planet one wind turbine at a time. I'm using that as an example. I have a background in the power industry, so I'm going to be pulling up a lot of engineering examples. But think about using it as an opportunity to describe the kind of work that you do and maybe a value that you serve. And that when somebody looks at your profile, that's going to pop out. Of course, they can always scroll down your profile and look at the actual job description that you currently have. No problem there. We're not trying to communicate anything inaccurate, but it's an opportunity to say something a little bit more personal and a little bit more descriptive. All right, number 3, the About section. The About section comes down a little bit further down your profile, but it's ahead of your experiences. And this section, predictably, is a section where you can write about yourself. Now, there's two mistakes that people make. One is that people leave this blank. They don't use it at all. Two, they treat it like a biography or just another way of describing their resume. The About section is not your resume. The rest of your profile, the rest of the LinkedIn profile will do the heavy lifting of that. All your experience sections, any projects that you've worked on, any awards that you've gained, any qualifications that you've earned, all of that has its own section on your LinkedIn profile. Let the profile do the heavy lifting for you. You don't need to repeat it in the About section. You can, but there's an opportunity to do something more. Instead, think about who do you serve? And how do you serve them? And what kind of work do you do as a profession? And what kind of impact do you have? Talk about why you do what you do. Why did you choose to be an engineer? Why did you choose to be a healthcare professional? Is there a story that goes behind this? I have a colleague who completely changed her career aspirations because one of her family members was diagnosed with cancer, and she realized, I need to do something more meaningful with my life. And so she went into cancer research. That's a great story. Is there a story that describes why you have chosen what you do? You can also use the About section to talk about your vision. What do you want to have happen? Are you trying to reduce poverty in the world? Are you trying to, help us transition to a carbon-free economy? Whatever it happens to be, is there a vision that you have? Is there a purpose that's driving you forward in this work? You can use the About section to talk about that. Tell us a story that inspires us about your mission. This can be your About section. It will help your profile stand out because a recruiter going through your profile, they're going to read the whole thing. But this is going to give you character. This is going to give dimension to your profile in a way that a resume would never be able to do. One other detail before I move on to the final section. Write this in the first person, which is, I did this. I achieved this. I want to do this. The reason for me doing this is this story. Tell it as a first person story. This is not the 1980s. Don't tell it in third person, as in Matthew is this person who does these things. That's a completely outdated format. Don't do it. Write in the first person. All right, final section. Your experience section. Now, this is where you list your job experiences. Most people, it's easy. You just add in your most recent job experience. The LinkedIn will automatically calculate how long you've worked in the job. Easy peasy. No problem there. The mistake that most people may or often make is that they only list the job title and no description. And you're leaving so much on the table when you do this. It means that when people are scrolling through, they only see the job title, which again, like I said before, might not make sense to an external audience. So this is an opportunity to expand on this. Now, there's a lot of space here when you expand on it. You have the opportunity to certainly add, your key accountabilities. What are the aspects of the job, the scope of the work, the number of clients you work on, the geographic area that you're accountable for. You can add all that stuff in here. Great, do that. That helps add detail. Lovely, do that. And this is also, and I highly recommend this, also where you get to promote yourself. If you had a success here, tell us about it. You reduced, efficiency, or you reduced the, safety incidents by 10%, great. Increased efficiency by a certain amount, great. You sold X number of products and raised profits by so much amount, great. Add it here. Insert the accomplishment, add it into your experience section. Anything notable you did. If you were on a notable project, or if you were able to contribute something interesting, add it in here as well. This is your place to gush. Add all your successes into your experience session. This is where you do it. Tell us how awesome you are. Now, if you're not sure and you haven't built up that confidence yet to say, okay, did I really achieve anything here? If you're not sure about accomplishments, then talk about the things that interest you the most. What were the projects that really inspired you? What were the things that you did that you were excited about, that you were glad you had a chance to experience? Great, add it in here. Those are interesting details that add character and flavor to your profile. And one other thing, and this thing almost nobody does, and I recommend you do this. Add attachments. In the experience section on LinkedIn, you have the ability to add attachments. And this allows other people to learn more about you. So you can attach PDFs, you can attach Word documents, you can attach pictures, drawings, any of that sort of stuff. You can add it here into your LinkedIn experience section. Examples of your work, things that you're proud of. Maybe there's an award you got or certification. You can add it in here. There's a dedicated section for awards, but if there's something you were proud of, add it here. And pictures. If you have pictures of work that you've done, maybe you've been on a job site somewhere, or you have a team photo with everybody, or you're celebrating a win and you have a picture of that, add the picture here. So few people even think to do this or know that it's even possible. You can add it here. Photos really stand out in your experience section. So, in summary, we've gone through 4 different things that you can improve on your LinkedIn profile. Banner image, have one first off. Keep it simple and professional. If you can, use an industry-related or professional-related image if you want. 2, headline or your job description. Your job description is probably fine, but if there's anything that might be confusing about it, this is an opportunity to do something more descriptive or translate it to an external audience. 3, the about section. Have one. And remember, this is not a biography or repeating your resume. This is a chance to expand on what you do, why you do it, who you serve. And if you can tell a story, great, that's amazing. Oh, one more note about the about section. You only have about 2,100 characters to work with, which isn't a lot. It's about a page worth of text if you're typing it out. So keep that in mind. You're not going to be able to write volumes here, but you can write a bunch. And finally, number 4 is the experience section. This is more than just simply the job title. Add a few details in there, but focus on your accomplishments and add some attachments. Okay, we've come to the end of this session. As I mentioned at the beginning, this is the very first time I've run an audio session, and I'm looking to see if I can see any questions. Right now, nothing's jumping out at me saying that people have any questions, but if you have a reaction, feel free to make it, or if you have a question, if there's a way that you can add it, great. But currently, because this is my first time, I'm not seeing anything pop up. I'm also going to make an invitation. If you are interested in having me take a look at your profile and give you some feedback, or if you've updated your profile and you also want some feedback, send me a message. Send me a message on LinkedIn. We can connect. I'd be happy to take a look and give you my thoughts. Like I said, I've looked at literally hundreds of profiles over my course as a recruitment manager, but also professionally since I've been actively using LinkedIn over this past year. So send me a message if you would like me to take a look at your profile. And that wraps up my content for today. Thank you for showing up and participating. My name is Matthew Devine, and I look forward to connecting with you on LinkedIn. Have a great afternoon.